Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Scotland and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a couple of times before, but it's been about 4.5 years since I last tried a beer from these guys and I don't know how that's managed to happen. Probably I just haven't seen anything from them during my trips home. Being based over in Sweden now, we're also not going to be able to get a hold of this brewery very easily, but you know, I'm just curious to see how they turn out because I have heard good things about their newer releases, so fingers crossed this is another good beer. For this one then, we are going to head out towards Loch Lomond. This brewery were originally based in Alexandria, but they've recently moved through to Dumbarton, and we're going to have a look at another beer from the Loch Lomond Brewery. So this is review number 4 from these guys on the channel. This particular beer is called Bravehop. It comes in at 6% ABV, and they describe it on their website as an amber IPA, which I guess means it will be somewhat along the lines of a West Coaster, but I'm sure we can figure that out when we open it up. But yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out. Nice to return to these guys after such a long time. There's 3 reviews up on the channel already, one from 2013, one from 2014 and one from 2016. And those were in order. I think it was the West Highland Way was the first beer that I tried from these guys, then it was a peated ale, and most recently was the Bonnie and Blonde. But this is one that I bought at my local Lidl shop. They did have another one in there that I thought I'd reviewed, but it turns out I hadn't. So yeah, I will see about reviewing a couple more beers from these guys the next time I make it home to Scotland. It's living over in Sweden now, it's quite difficult to get a hold of these things, but I've heard good things about their newer releases, so fingers crossed we can get that sorted the next time I make it back to Scotland. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. A 6% IPA from over close to Loch Lomond. Very beautiful part of Scotland incidentally, and if you are visiting as a tourist, I highly recommend that you check it out. And you can get some good beer over there as well, as you can see. But yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Loch Lomond Brewery before, and like I said, hopefully we can add some more in the near future. I don't want to leave it 4.5 years before I review more of their beers, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Scottish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to very regularly at the moment because I am at home in the motherland for a little while. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Loch Lomond Brewery then, on to my brewery notes. So Loch Lomond Brewery was opened by Fiona and Ewan McKeechern in Alexandria at the southern end of Loch Lomond back in 2011. They'd been home brewers for a number of years and they decided to go for it and turn professional, having seen the big gap in the market for cask ales in Scotland at the time, and also the growth of other breweries who'd started up not long before them, and it really has gone very well for them, I have to say. But the first brewery they had was located in the Lomond Industrial Estate in Alexandria, and they gradually scaled up this facility over the years. In 2018 they rebranded their cans. If you go back and watch my very early review that I did from them, the West Highland Way, they had these bottles which, if I remember rightly, had like a sort of painted glass design. If I remember rightly, it was really cool actually. But yeah, they went for something a little bit more kind of modern and slick, I guess we can say, in 2018. But at that point as well, just after that, they moved to their new facility in Dumbarton, and that was in late 2019 actually. So they've been in that new facility for a little bit over a year now. But this new facility is equipped with a 35 hectolitre brewery, and they've also hired a new brewer called Thomas McGregor, who used to work for the Black Wolf Brewery near Stirling here in Scotland, and also for Meantime Brewing, who are down in London. And this leaves Ewan a lot more kind of available, if you like, to focus on the development side of the business, because apparently these guys have grown a hell of a lot. But they do have plans, from what I understand, to have a much larger facility at the new Flamingo Land Resort, which is being built up on Loch Lomond. That is a little bit controversial from what I understand, but this new facility, if it comes off, apparently they will be employing around 30 people. It'll have a big restaurant, they'll have brewery tours, and they will be able to take like apprentice brewers and things like that as well. But one of the other interesting points about this brewery was that it was Fiona, who was the main brewer for quite some time, and Ewan was working on the weekends. So these guys were one of the first breweries in Scotland who had a female head brewer, which is pretty cool. The other one that springs to mind would be Wooha, who are from up near Elgin or Lossiemouth, if I remember correctly. They're in Moray somewhere. Actually, I still need to review one of their beers. I've not had anything from them, but yeah, these guys I think were the first Scottish brewery I reviewed who had a female brewmaster, which is pretty cool. Still quite a male-dominated industry, and it's just always interesting. It's always interesting to try beers that are brewed by women and see if they are they are a little bit different and things like that. But yeah, I think it's quite interesting. There's more and more female brewers getting out there at the moment. One of my favourite female brewers actually is, I forget her first name now, but the Brazilian woman who works for Amar Breweries over in Copenhagen. She does some really awesome stuff. So there's some really good female brewers out there. One of the ones that I encountered recently was the woman who runs the Diva down in Sao Paulo in Brazil. Like, her beer seems to be very, very good as well, actually. But yeah, always a cool little thing to point out. Actually, there's things like the Pink Boot Society and stuff these days. I don't know if Loch Lomond Brewery have actually participated in that, come to think of it, but yeah, the Pink Boot Society is one that promotes women getting involved in the brewing industry and stuff like that. But yeah, anyway, as of January 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 60 different beers. There's a whole host of different styles on there, but quite a lot of their beers at the moment seem to be like IPAs, session IPAs, and golden ales and blonde ales and stuff like this. So they do go for the kind of more drinkable styles of beer at the moment, from what I can understand. I do want to try the Lost, was it the Lost in Mosaic it's called? I've heard that from these guys is a very, very nice beer. So as I say, fingers crossed I can get a hold of a few more of their beers at some point fairly soon, but I thought this one was a very nice beer to review for you here in the meantime. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Loch Lomond Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and have a taste of this beer then. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork of this one before we open it up. As you can see, it is pretty cool actually. I do like this sort of satin finish that they have on there, and the sort of green, is it a field, a forest kind of thing? Yeah, I think it is. It looks, very, very nice. The artwork on this is pretty cool, actually, I have to say. So yeah, very, very nicely done. But yeah, like I said, I bought this beer in my local Lidl shop. I think it cost me like $1.75 or $1.80 or something, which for an IPA is pretty damn good value, I have to say. But yeah, 6% ABV this one, 440 millilitres. It tells you on the back here the hops in this one are Columbus and Chinook. Columbus, we know, is quite a popular bittering hop over in the States. It gives you a nice big kind of distinctive spiciness. Chinook, on the other hand, it can be used as a bittering hop and as an aroma hop. I prefer it as a bittering hop, to be quite honest with you, but it gives you a lot of pine resin and strong grapefruits and things like that. So I've got a feeling this might be quite a strong, grapefruity, like an old school, maybe, 1980s sort of West Coast type IPA, this one. They did describe it on the website as an amber IPA. But yeah, it says it contains wheat in the malt base as well, so it should have a nice little bready component to it as well. But yeah, 6% ABV this one, listed as an IPA. Looks pretty nice. So let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. 4.5 years since I had a beer from Loch Lomond Brewery. Far, far too long actually. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. I've been enjoying, like, there's some the thing I've noticing about Scotland at the moment is there's some very, very good craft beers out there these days. There's some really, really good things popping up, especially in the supermarkets. The standard of the supermarket beer has increased a hell of a lot. It used to just, be like the sort of more traditional breweries that were getting their beers into the supermarkets and things. But yeah, there are more of the kind of craft American style breweries getting in there now as well. Like in Tesco's, you can get Fierce beer, you can get 71 Brewing, and these kind of things. Because when I was in Lidl's that time, I ended up buying, I got a beer from Broughton, I got this one, I got the Luminous Lights from 71 Brewing, and what was the other one? what was the other one? One of the beers from Stewart Brewing, actually, through in Edinburgh. So yeah, they've got a good selection of craft things in the likes of Lidl and Aldi's these days. So yeah, if you're in Scotland, go and check out what they've got in Lidl and Aldi. They've always got beer festivals and stuff too, so you get different ones every so often. But as you can see, this beer has poured a lovely kind of rich orangey amber colour, this one. It does have a little bit of a natural haze to it, but it's almost a little bit more hazy than some of the kind of traditional West Coasters. Remember I said it has wheat in the beer, so that is probably contributing to the haziness quite a bit. But you can see when we poured this beer, it had just about a finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream coloured head on it. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But I mean, overall, it does look pretty damn nice, I have to say, and it is kind of what you would expect from an IPA, to be honest with you. It does look a little bit New Englandish, but at the same time it's got a bit more of a kind of richer amber colour. It's nowhere near as hazy as some of these New England hazies that you're going to come across, but the wheat will give the beer just a little bit more of a kind of natural haze. But yeah, fairly rich amber colour to this one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there. It just looks pretty nice, I have to say. I like how this one goes together. But yeah, it looks a little bit more like a West Coaster. Nice kind of soft wheatiness in there by the looks of it. But yeah, the colour of your beer, remember, is dependent on two things. One, the type of malts you use, and two, the length of the boil. Adjuncts, of course, can affect it too, but the longer you boil the beer, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour out of it. But again, that's dependent on the type of malts, and the level of haziness that you have in IPAs these days is usually the wheat and the oats that determine that. But 6% of this one should be quite nice, rich amber colour. Nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance. It certainly looks the part for an IPA. So yeah, let's have a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this beer. Very, very curious about this one. Ooh, it does actually smell really nice. Not that I wasn't expecting something different, of course, but it doesn't smell quite as I thought it was going to be. This really leans towards the juicy end of the spectrum. I was expecting this one to be a little bit more kind of, you know, a little bit more malty, if that makes sense. I thought it would be a more West Coaster, but it really leans a bit more towards the kind of bready, New Englandy sort of things. But they described it as an amber IPA, right enough. But yeah, the first thing that comes out of this beer at you is a soft white bready kind of note. There are a few sort of bread crusty elements in there as well. Some nice, kind of brown sugars as well. You do get a bit of a sweet caramel, a little bit of a Werther's Original sort of thing, and perhaps a wee bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuit kind of vibe as well. But underneath that, you've got a smooth white bready note, some maybe wholemeally qualities as well, some wholemeal brown bready sort of things, and a little bit of bread crust too. So I like how I do like how all of this goes together in that sense. It's a very, very nice it's a very nice smelling beer on the malty side of things, but the fruits and the hops do take the lead on this one a little bit. So yeah, on the hoppy side of things, it doesn't smell quite as dank and spicy and things as I would have expected from Columbus and Chinook. As I say, Columbus usually gives you that big, spicy, it's got a very distinctive spicy character to it, but you don't get too much of that in this beer. And Chinook as well usually gives you that big, deep pine resinous note. There's not a lot of that. The green component of this beer really is just a little bit more kind of bright, if you like, a little bit more kind of subtle if you want to go that far. But yeah, the brown, you do have a wee bit of that. The brown sugars kind of build a little bit of a bridge with the kind of earthy side of the green part of the beer in this one. There is a little bit of earthiness to this beer, and you're going to get that mainly from Columbus, if I remember rightly. You've got a good little bit of floral aromaticity out of it, but it's not spicy in the same way. And to be honest, when it's not this spicy, that would indicate to me that most of the hops are being added as late additions. So perhaps the Columbus is the early addition hop, the Chinook is the late addition. Remember, if you add the hops earlier on, that's when you get the most bitterness out of them, but as you go through the boil of the beer, usually an IPA like this will be about 70 to 90 minutes, but as you go through the boil of the wort, you get the trade-off between bitterness in favour of flavour and aroma, and the aroma of this beer to me indicates it's more heavily hopped in the latter stages of the boil. But yeah, the fruitiness out of this one is quite interesting. It's really got a bit of a kind of apricot-y quality to it. It's almost a wee tiny bit orangey as well, to be quite honest. They say on the back of the can, like marmalade and pine. I don't really get so much pine in this one, but I do get like an apricot-y note out of it for sure. On the fruity side of things, I say a little bit of an apricot. I can get a wee bit of a kind of tangerine orange out of the beer, in fairness. And there's a few other interesting things, but yeah, normally if it's Chinook, you would expect grapefruit out of it. So maybe there's something going on with the yeast, or whatever. I wonder what yeast, does it say what yeast strain they've used in this one? Not really, but I just noticed on the other side of the can it says apricot flavour, but there we go. We'll see what we think about that. Yeah, the aroma of this one is quite interesting. The green component, as I say, a little bit of earthiness in there, some nice... There is a good little bit of floral aromaticity on this one, but it's quite bright. It's almost kind of akin to like a Czech Sats hop. It's got a wee touch of spiciness to it, but then again it's got the more bright qualities that you'd expect of like a Hallertau or a Tettnanger from Germany, but obviously it's American hops that's in here, so quite unusual to see these hops behaving in such a way. But yeah, nice little bit of grassiness on it, and as I say, the fruitiness, there's definitely a wee bit of a bright tangerine note for me. It's got quite a bit of apricot, and you know, there's some other tropical fruits in there as well, come to think of it. So yeah, the fruity notes to this beer are really quite interesting for me. It's got quite a softness, but at the same time you get a little bit of an oily, quirky character out of it as well. So yeah, take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this one. The aroma of this beer is not what I expected, to be quite honest, but yeah, I think it should turn out to be pretty nice, this one. I'm quite curious to see how it turns out in its flavour profile. But yeah, take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this beer before you get stuck into it. But that's what we're going to do just now. So this one is the Bravehop, coming in at 6% ABV from the Loch Lomond Brewery, now in Dumbarton, just a bit to the north of Glasgow, over in the west of Scotland. 6% IPA, 6% amber IPA, as they're describing it, with Columbus and Chinook. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and definitely nice to return to the Loch Lomond Brewery after such a long time. Lost in Mosaic was the beer I was thinking of earlier. I want to try that one for sure. But yeah, cheers. Yeah, that's quite a nice, easy drinker. That is definitely a nice, easy drinker, this beer. Yeah. For me, if I was blind tasting this one, I have to say, I don't know if I would really guess what style it is, straight off, to be with you. I don't know if... I would wonder if this... I honestly don't know what I would make of this beer if I tried it with a blind tasting. It's not a West Coast IPA, it's not a New England IPA, it's got a little bit of in between, but I might wonder if this is a big bready sort of blonde ale or something like that, you know. That's what I would probably wonder out of this. I don't know if I would pick up that this was an IPA right away, because it's got a big bready and smooth malt presence to it, and the sweetness, in fairness, does come out of it a little bit later. So I'm really not sure, if I was blind tasting this, what would I think it is? What would I think this beer is? I don't know, but I'll tell you though, it is a nice beer, and that's one of the things is, you know, you can put beers in all these style categories and stuff. The main question I think should always be, is it a nice beer? And you know, I think this one is. This is, again, it's another solid beer from these guys, and they always, you know, they always had nice beers. Their beers were nice and drinkable. They were a little bit more, it's like if you take a brewery like, you know, Williams Brothers, for example, who do all these kind of sessionable beers, and you just put a little bit more American influence in there. That's how I would describe the beers that I've had from Loch Lomond so far, although in fairness they've got beers like the Silky Stout and things like that, which I would like to try actually. They do have a few more, they do have things that are a little bit more, they've got a bit more diversity of style, if you like, I think, than Williams Brothers do, although in fairness they do have stouts, and now they've got their cans that they're releasing as well. But yeah, Loch Lomond, it's mainly session beers, I think, that these guys are producing. You're not going to, at least, they've done one or two big double IPAs and stuff, which I would like to try, and a black IPA as well, I think. But yeah, they are quite sessionable in terms of their approach, I would say. But yeah, again, just a solid beer, that. So thumbs up to Loch Lomond for this one. As I say, I do want to try a few more of their beers the next time I make it home. Probably would have to be September that time. I'm not going to have much time in February, I think. But yeah, this should be quite nice. But yeah, let's try and break down the flavour of this beer then and just see how we go. So straight away with this beer, across the middle of your palate you get a nice little bit of a kind of, there's a bit of a kind of grainy, brown bready sort of base to the beer. I wonder, is that a little bit of Maris Otter or something like that? But yeah, there is a wee bit of a kind of brown bready sort of thing. That blankets the middle of your tongue. When you go to the back third of your palate, it's definitely a bit smoother and slightly thicker. That's the wheat. That is definitely the wheat that's coming out there. So yeah, you've got a nice kind of smooth and slightly thick and very slightly bitey at the very back of the tongue. You've got a little bit of bitiness, smoothness and thickness on that back third of your palate as you move further forward into that border region between middle third and back third. It's definitely got a wee bit more kind of graininess to it as well, which I think is very, very nice. So yeah, I like how that goes together in this one for sure. But yeah, the malty side of this beer, I think, goes together pretty damn nicely. It's got a graininess and breadiness in there, and it develops a wee bit of sweetness the further that you go into the aftertaste as well. So yeah, in the very centre of your palate there is definitely a little bit of a straight up sweet caramel there. Underneath it, it feels as if you've got a little bit of a kind of butter candy note, and then as you reach the very edge of the tongue it comes across as a little bit more like McVitie's digestive biscuity grainy sort of thing. But underneath it there is a fairly kind of prominent white bready sort of thing. I do suspect Maris Otter in this beer. There's just a few notes about this, about the malt base in this one. The biscuity notes, the very slight butter candy, Werther's Original type thing. There's just a few things that are telling me Maris Otter, and it's a lovely malt that to use in IPAs. Actually, I was always a great fan of the American Two Rows and the Crystals and things like that that had that slightly sweeter backbone, and Maris Otter is probably the English equivalent. So yeah, the malty side of this beer I think is done pretty damn nicely, I have to say. So thumbs up to them on that. Other than that though, I don't think there's too much to say. There's too much else to say about the malt base, to be honest with you. So let's move on to the hoppy side of the beer. In the back corners of the palate there's definitely a little touch of earthiness there. As you move further forward along the side of the palate it develops a little bit of a herbal quality, and then as you reach the front corners of the palate you can feel there is a little bit of that kind of piney resinous note from the Chinook, but you do get a wee bit of spiciness from the the Columbus as well, which is quite interesting. But round the front curve of the palate there's a nice grassiness to the beer. It does have a wee bit of a zesty quality as well, which I quite like. But yeah, this one does go together very, very nicely. So yeah. So yeah, it is a really, really nice, it is a very, very nice beer, this one for sure. I like how the green side of the beer goes together as well. So it's got quite a nice contrast there, a bit of a grainy but still quite smooth and slightly sweet malt base, a wee bit of a kind of bitter and spicy green component as well, which is quite nice, although it's not going to blow the head off you in terms of bitterness. But then on the front third of your palate you've got a nice more kind of oily, juicy sort of thing where those fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. And as I say, I certainly like how that side of the beer goes together. So thumbs up to Loch Lomond on this one. The fruity side of things then. So front third of your palate, as I always say, you get that juicy fruity sort of thing. If you go towards the back of the palate, it's quite interesting because for me it has a wee bit of a sort of sultana-y, peary sort of thing on that very border region between middle third and back third of your palate. There's quite a slightly bready kind of note to this one, if you like, but for me there's a wee bit of a sultana, peary sort of thing, and as you move further forward it gradually develops a more kind of apricot-y flavour, and then as you reach the kind of centre towards the front of that front third of your palate you get a more, it does have a bit of a kind of orangey note to this one. It's quite an oily orange, but in fairness it does get a little bit brighter, so it's a bit more like Mosaic than it is like it's a little bit more like Mosaic than it is Amarillo, if that makes sense. Amarillo is always big and oily, whereas Mosaic is just a bit lighter and brighter, if that makes sense. So if I was blind tasting this, I probably would think there was a bit of Mosaic in here, to be quite honest with you. Azaka would be another option, and you know, you've got Waiheke and stuff from New Zealand. But yeah, I would probably think there was a bit of Mosaic in this beer, to be honest with you, and I'm surprised there's not. The two hops that they've used in this one are not well known for their fruity qualities, to be quite honest with you, and I'm surprised there's not more of a kind of grapefruity presence from the Chinook. So there must be something going on with the yeast. I wonder what yeast they've used in this. You know, because it is quite bready, and that level of fruitiness can't just be down to those two hops. The yeast has got to be playing a role in that as well, I think, just from what you've got out. But yeah, as you reach the very kind of front tip of the tongue, there is a little touch of zestiness to the beer overall, and I really like how all of that goes together in this beer. It's a very nice drinkable beer, this one. Is it the most kind of bold and punchy beer you're going to find from Loch Lomond Brewery? I would doubt it, to be honest with you, but it's a really damn nice drinkable one, this. They have, as I say, they've got double IPAs, they've got black IPAs, Lost in Mosaic and things like that. I would assume that those beers are a bit more kind of punchy and out there than this one, but this is, it's got a good balance, this beer, between the hops and the malt, and it's really just nice and very drinkable, to be honest with you, and I like that about it. I would be curious, as I say, to try some of the other beers that these guys have released, because they seem to be going down quite well, and as I say, quite a sessionable brewery overall, to be honest with you. But yeah, this beer gets a thumbs up from me, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. The other thing to consider is that at $1.75, $1.80 a can in Lidl's, you're getting a bloody good deal on this too, so bear that in mind as well. But yeah, I'm definitely keen to try a few more of their kind of bigger beers, their more limited edition stuff at some stage, if that's possible. But yeah, thumbs up to them for this. In terms of the style, I would say, as I say, I still wouldn't be convinced that I would pick out this as an IPA if I was blind tasting it. It's very bready orientated. I don't know what I would make of this one, to be honest with you, because it's not distinctively West Coast, it's not distinctively New England, it's not distinctively kind of English and traditional in that sense as well. It's kind of like their own take on it. It's just like their own kind of take on the style. It's a beer that it's like a beer that they've decided, oh, we want a bit of hoppiness out of this, we want a bit of fruitiness and stuff, and then they've just put a nice kind of big bready malt base into it. So this is one of the more kind of bready leaning IPAs that I've come across in recent times. But as I say, I like it. I do like a good malty presence in my IPAs, for sure. But yeah, let's kind of round off the tasting section at that, and move on to the mouthfeel. So the mouthfeel for me, I would say that this beer is pretty much in the middle of the spectrum. It's a mid-bodied beer. Yeah, mid-bodied beer. The carbonation is really pretty smooth on this one. The mouthfeel overall, I would say it's quite smooth, but at the same time it's got a little bit of slickness to it. But yeah, mid-bodied beer, smooth and slick at the same time. The malt base for me, as I've said to you, it's got a smoothness underneath there, but it's got a good sweetness as well, and the sweetness does develop a little bit of oiliness to it. And then when it comes to the hoppy bitterness, what would we say about this beer? Yeah, it's definitely got about, it's only about 30 or something IBUs, this beer. It's not going to blow the head off you in terms of bitterness, so it's got a sort of New England level bitterness to it, but I think that suits the beer. It really does work for it, and you just get a wee bit more bitterness on the front corners of the palate as you progress into the aftertaste. But yeah, lovely juicy fruity note, a little bit oily, and I like how I do like how this one goes together, to be honest with you. So thumbs up to Loch Lomond Brewery, and as I said, I do hope I can review a few more beers from these guys the next time I make it back home to Scotland, either in February or in September. So yeah, that would be really cool. So let me know where is the best place to actually pick up the different cans of these beers, because I want single cans. That's the thing. You can buy from the website, but it's all, you have to get a crate of it and things, and the amount of different, I like trying different beers. That's the main thing. But yeah, let me know where the best place to get a hold of the different Loch Lomond beers are. Maybe I can take a drive along to the brewery. Maybe we can do an out and about video there, or even do a little brewery interview thing with them as well. That would be quite cool. To add on to the Meet the Brewery segment that we've got. It would be quite cool to do it with these guys, as I say, because you've got Fiona in there as well, one of the first female brewmasters in Scotland in the modern time, I guess. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this review then. This one was the Bravehop 6% IPA, although kind of I think it's a very interesting beer, this one. It's not a distinct IPA in my mind, but the main question, as I say, is it a good beer? Yes, absolutely. So have a go at this one if you like a nice kind of bready, sweet and big fruity beer. I think you will quite enjoy this one. But yeah, let's leave it at that. The Bravehop 6% IPA from the Loch Lomond Brewery, now in Dumbarton, over on the west coast of Scotland. Thank you again for watching. Check out my social media. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below, and I will catch you guys in the next review. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Make sure you check out Loch Lomond Brewery, and you will see more reviews from these guys, fingers crossed, later on this year. Cheers.